Hey everybody, welcome back to Horror Trans. My name is Stephanie Breen. I am a transgender woman who talks about all things horror. And today I'm going to do something different because I haven't done a video in a while. And I don't want to do any reviews right now because I'm trying to get caught up. I'm trying to bank a bunch of reviews before I start uploading because I fell behind. So I got a lot of movies to watch. But I wanted to do my Halloween timeline theory that's going to be predicated on two assumptions that are going to contradict some of the stuff we see in some of the films, but I'm going to give an explanation for how we can reconcile those things. And it is going to require some squinting and tilting your head and doing a little bit of shrugging some stuff off as whatever. But I think this works. Well, it works in my head. Because I don't like the convoluted choose-your-own-adventure. There's 37 timelines between the 13 films because that's fucking ridiculous. Now, this theory is predicated on the assumption that Season of the Witch and the two Rob Zombie films are not canon. They don't exist. But everything else is. And so it is going to require a little retconning, but we're going to have to, like I said, I have a way to account for some of it. And this is going to go under the assumption that Haddonfield is a medium-sized town. Somewhere between 50 to 75,000 people. This is based on the assumption that they have, a pretty big hospital, and they have a dedicated mental health facility. And, a lot of towns this size, as I've discussed in other videos on my other channel, do look like smaller towns than they actually are because, once you get off the main drag, it just looks like any old small town a lot of times. But here's the first assumption I'm gonna make. Halloween 2, 1981, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, Halloween 7, H2O, Halloween 8, Resurrection, Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends are all one continuous, unbroken in-universe timeline. So the first assumption I'm going to make is that Loomis was correct in Halloween and Halloween 2 taking place, but here's how I'm going to reconcile this with the 2018 timeline. The first thing I'm going to assume is the town is going to cover up the events of that day. The exploding hospital, Loomis getting burned, Michael Myers going into, I guess he went into a mental health, I guess he got locked up. And it is going to go against what we see in the flashbacks in Halloween Kills, but I'm going to, again, have a, we're just going to fall back on the police covered it up. So the flashbacks are of the official story, not what really happened. And it isn't the police having flashbacks. So memory is funky. So if you tell a lie enough, and if you believe a lie enough, hard enough, your brain will fabricate false memories to back up the lie. And I'm going to assume that's what's happening here with some of this stuff. It's going to be a little fuzzy, and you are going to have to shrug some stuff off to make it work. But I still think it does work, and I think that you don't have to shrug off as much as you think you do to make it work. Because the first assumption is the police cover-up. The second assumption is Michael Myers himself is only responsible and is only present as the killer in Halloween 1 and 2, 78 and 81, and then Halloween 2018 Kills and Ends. The other movies, Return of Michael Myers, Revenge, Curse, Resurrection, H2O, those are copycats. And I base this on what we see in the film. Michael is very clearly killed, or at least whoever's wearing the Michael mask, I should say, is very obviously killed in almost all of these movies. And I know they do introduce the supernatural element, or at least they attempt to, a supernatural explanation in Curse of Michael Myers. But again, that's the Cult of Thorn, and I'm going to go under the assumption that they know that it's not real. There's not really a demon-possessed Michael Myers who is unkillable because he's possessed by the devil or a demon or whatever. That actually, it's just their stupid little silly cult, and that they're working with the police. Well, not really with the police, that some of them are, but they're behind the cover-ups. So the police are not only covering up the copycat killers, and maybe they're not giving credit, because, they explain it away probably in the newspapers that, a copycat killer. And so, since it's a copycat, they're not attributing those kills to Michael, which would make sense when those kills aren't included in Halloween 2018 and Kills. They're not listed among the people he's killed because he didn't kill those people. Now you're going to wonder, okay, why is whoever is in The Return of Michael Myers, this copycat, why was he mistaken for the real Michael Myers? And why does Loomis continue thinking it's the real Michael Myers? And why is this person after Jamie Lloyd? Well, this goes back to the cover-up deal. Because of the cover-up, the guy in the hospital wasn't Michael Myers, the guy that got burned. The real Michael Myers was arrested by the police, as we see, and so I'm retconning my own theory, but I'll backtrack as needed. So the police did arrest Michael Myers at the end of Halloween 78, and a copycat went onto the hospital, but the police didn't tell Loomis it was a copycat. God damn it. Okay, I apologize for that. I couldn't hit the pause button in time, and I don't have any way to edit this, so I do apologize. Anyways, I tried. But I think if we just go forward from there, Loomis still believes that the copycats are the real deal. And because the police are involved in the cover-up, and so are the government, and to an extent, the people in the hospitals and obviously the hospital, I guess, administrator or whatever. So what happens is, the hospital administrator is a member of, or the head of the cult, and the cult is prevalent in town. And I know they do eventually drop the Cult of Thorn timeline, but here's how I'm going to reconcile that, so bear with me. Again, the cult was doing their practices, but the police and the townspeople that were in on it, after the events of Curse of Michael Myers, and we're going to rip the supernatural element out, and we're just going to assume that it was all smoke and mirrors, and, whatever. Maybe they have the little blue flower that the Scarecrow uses in Batman Begins. I don't know. There's a way to whisk that away, which is what we're going to do. Because you don't really see... I mean, you see the quick cuts and the hallucinations and hear the voices and things, but that's easily explainable with, via hallucinogenic drugs and smoke and mirrors. Which is why they keep either hiring or training or whatever. The copycats are members of the cult. And so they have to maintain the illusion that Michael is still out there killing people, because that supports their interpretation of what how Halloween night, Samhain, is supposed to be about. And, you know, Loomis is one of the ones who is not in on the cover-up, so he is deceived, and which is why he goes bonkers, because he's like, I shot him 6 times, and we blew his head off, and blah, blah, blah. We electrocuted him, and we've killed the motherfucker 7 times, and he's still walking around. Well, because they didn't really kill him. Now, then you get to Halloween Kills. You get to the end of Halloween Kills, where they're very obviously killing Michael Myers, right? And he gets up by sheer force of will and kills everybody. I'm going to chalk that up to he's an elderly man, probably on some type of drugs. He isn't feeling the pain that they're inflicting on him. And so he is able to just, through adrenaline and sheer force of will, overcome his injuries and finish off the mob. And then he goes and, I guess, heals himself. Now you're getting to the Laurie Strode situation. She's not his sister in Halloween 78. She is his sister in 81. She's sort of still his sister through 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. She presumably dies in Resurrection. But she also dies in between 2 and 4. You have to discount 3. But we know she faked her death following the events of 81, right? We know that. This is confirmed in 2 separate timelines, which is going to be the through line for this timeline. She faked her death after giving birth to Jamie Lloyd, so she could clear her conscience, so to speak, to protect her child by giving Jamie up for adoption, so that if Michael ever came back, he wouldn't go after Jamie. And then also she faked her death again when she moved to California, but and she had Josh Hartnett in the events of H2O. But you're going to say, well, what about her daughter and granddaughter in Halloween 2018 in that trilogy, right? The A24 trilogy. Well, okay, so we're going to go on to the assumption that they know she faked her death once, and they her mom went along with it because, you know, she knows, right? And then after, so she had, you know, her mom was estranged, right? So I'm going to say somewhere between, and we're going to mess with the timeline internally a little bit, but we're going to say somewhere between Halloween 1 and 2, which take place on the same night, so within 78. But again, they arrest Michael, but then the cult sends out their copycat to continue the illusion that Michael is still out and about. But the police are going to cover that up, and they're not going to call that Michael in their police reports, and the newspapers aren't. So that killer isn't going to get credit. Michael's not going to get credit for those kills because that's not Michael. Somewhere between that night and giving birth to Jamie Lloyd, faking her death the first time, and also, so she's going to give birth to her other daughter, who she's going to raise for a little bit, but they do establish that her daughter was taken away from her and that they had a rocky relationship. And so within that, she's going to fake her death, sort of. Not, I mean, kind of. She is going to fake her death, but she's not going to, I mean, she's, her daughter and her daughter's family are kind of in on it, so are the townspeople, and they're going to go along with it, but they're going to be like, well, actually, she didn't fake her death. So there's going to be that cover-up, and that's going to cause confusion, but we're going to explain it away with, newspapers get things wrong, and they're gonna, the police are gonna be like, oh no, we misidentified the victim. That wasn't really Laurie Strode, because this was before forensic evidence, and somebody else died in that car accident. This is what the police reports are gonna come out later. Somebody else died, and we misidentified that person as Laurie Strode. But because her daughter was in police custody at the time, or state custody, or whatever, and that's when she became, I don't remember her name from H2O, but that's where she goes to California and raises Josh Hartnett for 17 years, while at the same time her other daughter, who is going to give birth to her granddaughter in the A24 trilogy, is off living her life, scared of her mom. And her mom continues to, okay, so she is kind of estranged with Josh Hartnett's dad. And so here's how I see it. When Josh Hartnett is with his dad, Laurie Strode is going to go back to her secret life, where she's still living as Laurie Strode. Maybe under a different name temporarily, or maybe just, she has to, tell her family, hey, somebody else, they thought it was me, it wasn't me, don't worry about it, I'm not really dead. But she's going to use that, while raising Josh Hart. So she's going to have three separate, she's going to have kids with three different men, is where I'm going with this. We're going to make that assumption. I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt and say maybe one of them was Ben Tramer, but probably not, because he died in Halloween 2. And it's possible we could blink that away and just say the police, again, misidentified the body as Ben Tramer, and it really wasn't. I don't remember if Ben Tramer was in the A24 trilogy or not. I don't think he was, but it doesn't matter if he was or wasn't. We can just say if he was, then we'll just say that they, again, got it wrong and identified the wrong person, or police cover up, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. We are going to rely on the crutch that there's a town-wide police cover-up, not just of the copycat killers, and Michael's connection to Laurie Strode, because she goes to court and has those records hidden, right? Which we know they were hidden, but between the events of 78 and 81, because Loomis is finding out about it. And so I'm going to go under the assumption that from here, somewhere after faking her death between 81 and Halloween 4, she has those court records sealed again, because she doesn't want her son, Josh Hartnett, to know about his stepsisters or half-sisters. I don't know what the correct familial relationship would be between Josh Hartnett's character and Jamie Lloyd and the daughter in the A24 trilogy, but they are siblings, either half-siblings or step-siblings, I don't care, it doesn't really matter. Jamie Lloyd is going to die in Curse of Michael Myers, where, again, we're going to assume that Paul Rudd character is actually not the real Tommy Doyle. He's a fan, a true crime fan, who's so obsessed that he is telling the people in Curse of Michael Myers he's Tommy Doyle. He never shows his identification, and nobody outside of the woman and her daughter and Loomis, he doesn't tell anybody else that he's actually Tommy Doyle. So I'm going to assume he's lying. He's not really Tommy Doyle. He's just gathered enough news clippings and TV and radio interviews and things that he is so obsessed. He knows enough about the story, and he's maybe come to town, I'm going to say relatively recently, specifically to take on the identity of Tommy Doyle. The real Tommy Doyle is still out there at the bar doing his speech every Halloween, Never Forget. And again, because the police I'm going to assume that the killings in 81, the people know that happened in Haddonfield, but they don't talk about it because that was a copycat. And probably also because maybe the police are like, maybe they covered it up. Maybe they covered up the killings and people don't know that the nurses and the victims in the hospital took place. And they wrote off the explosion somehow as just a gas leak or something. And so again, we can still make it work with the police cover-up, because police can, once you get the government involved, they can cover shit up, especially in movie land. We can just make that a sign. If you can accept the fact that Michael Myers is immortal because he's pure evil, you can accept the fact that the police can cover it up, okay? It's just as believable. So why go after Jamie Lloyd? Well, that's the Cult of Thorn. They have to send their copycat after Jamie Lloyd to continue the, ritual or whatever. Because that's part of their cult thingy. And they're doing their hallucinogenic smoke and mirrors, drugs of the people that are involved, so that they continue to think that it is actually Michael Myers and he is immortal, and they're transferring his evil into Jamie's child, because that's what they want people to believe. And so the cult actually does get defeated in Curse of Michael Myers, which is why they disappear from the timeline, because they were defeated, and the remaining cops and the remaining politicians that were not in the cult have found out about the cult, and they're like, listen, we've already got enough problems with Michael Myers and now these copycats. We've got a lot of shit to cover up. Let's just go ahead and cover up this cult too. I'm going to assume they arrest everybody. They're going to do some violation of rights. It's okay. It's not okay, but it's okay for the explanation. For this, they are going to arrest anybody that was involved in the cult, and they're just going to send them to wherever. Florida, Guantanamo. Guantanamo didn't exist yet, but the Guantanamo within this universe. They're going to send them to wherever you send people in the Halloween universe to forget about them. And then, but the real Michael Myers that was arrested in 78 is still sitting in the insane asylum. And that's the one the podcasters go see in 2018. And that's the one that escapes. And that's his first time escaping. And because Laurie Strode did have the court records sealed, and she did fake her death, but also unfaked her death. So there's a lot of, again, the cover-up, and the news media is not really in on it, but they're just they're reporting on what they're given, and they're not doing a lot of investigative journalism because it's a small town, and they don't do that in small towns. They just take the word of the government, generally, because, they don't have the resources to do investigative journalism. They're a small newspaper. They don't have that kind of money. They don't have that kind of manpower. So, then you get to Resurrection, right? Laurie Strode very obviously dies at the very beginning of Resurrection. Well, I'm going to say not very obviously. She very easily could have faked her death in that scene as well. And again, we know that's a copycat, right? We're going on the assumption that that's another copycat. She doesn't know that it's a copy. Well, actually, she probably does, because she is privy to the cover-up. So she knows, okay, that's not really Michael, but she has to play along, because she doesn't want to break cover. She doesn't want anybody involved to think that might actually witness him coming after her. They're going to have to cover that up as well. Again, she doesn't want to break the illusion, because that helps her maintain her insanity that we see in 2018, her paranoia and ultra preparedness. So she knows that Michael did the things he did in 78, and then that there was a cult. She's aware of it, and she knows that they were using the Michael myth to spread fear or whatever the fuck they were doing. And the town covers it up. And that's why she's so paranoid, because she's like, she's not just paranoid of the real Michael. She's paranoid of the copycats that might still come after her, even though they've expunged the cult at this point in the timeline. And, you know, she's already cut ties with her son. He's now an adult. He goes off to college and decides after the events of H2O, he's washed his hands of her. He's like, fuck you, Mom, I'm done, basically. So he goes to live his life and doesn't even bother to check in with her. And she kind of goes back to Haddonfield in the hopes that maybe she can have a normal family relationship with her other daughter and her granddaughter, because she's like, this is her last chance at having a family. And so she's done enough, you know, faking her death and working with the police to cover things up and doing her necessary getting court records sealed, etc. She's just like over it. She's like, you know what, I'm done with it. So she is going to play along because she doesn't want to expose the truth. She's going to play along with the official cover-up because she's in on it. And she really doesn't want people to know that there were copycats killing people. Now, how were the police able to cover up those murders? Well, I don't know. Again, there are a lot of victims in these movies, but they're in isolated spots. They're usually in a barn or an attic or a basement. So it's very easy for the police to hide a body and, oh, this person electrocuted the dad in Curse of Michael Myers. Oh, he accidentally electrocuted himself after stabbing his wife to death. You know, so it's easy for the police to, you know, lie, as we'll say, on the police reports. And again, continuing the cover-up. Any death that they can't attribute to the copycats, which they're probably not even... They're probably covering up the copycats, too, which, again, is why nobody talks about the copycats in the A24 trilogy, because the police are like, no, anyone that the copycats have killed, we're just gonna... You know, there was a gas leak in the hospital and an explosion, and all the people who were working that shift died in the explosion. So nobody's going to go investigate their bodies and find out that there was a killer. They're going to erase the security footage, and, well, there you go. Halloween 4, yeah, the entire police department was killed. That's going to be hard to explain away. And again, that wouldn't be related, that wouldn't be attributed to Michael if they're covering it up. So here's where you're going to have to go with, you're going to have to take two possible explanations here. Either A, all of those police officers, the official story is they were on some sort of undercover expedition, training incident, or assisting the FBI with something, and oops, they all died. And so that's, you know, not really brought up. You know, yeah, that is town trauma, but that's not going to be brought up on Halloween night when people are talking about Michael Myers, because it's not related. Or the police are going to have the families of those police officers move out of town, and the official story is they just transferred to other departments. Whatever, that will go along with take your pick, whichever one you prefer. It still works to me. Nobody, again, is killed in a public way in Halloween 5 that can't be attributed to something else. An accident or a one-off, you know, or even a suicide or whatever, you know. So, I don't know. Those are all very real possibilities. Again, I've already talked about Curse of Michael Myers. That fits. Again, you know, the cult using their illusions and smoke and mirrors and hallucinogenic drugs and whatnot. I've tackled H2O, but now how do you deal with Resurrection? Because in Resurrection, they're doing a reality TV show where they are attributing, they're saying Michael Myers is the most famous serial killer and he's killed X number of people, and they're including the body counts from the previous films. Well, again, if we've accepted the fact that there were copycats, and they didn't all have to take place in Haddonfield, or again, we've accepted the fact that the media is reporting this thing and they're like, oh, Michael Myers, they're exaggerating, they're like, it's a sensationalist reality internet TV show, so he's like, oh yeah, Michael Myers, he's killed 37 people, when in reality he's only killed 5 people, 4 people, and the police have covered up the other killings, and he's just like sensationalizing it. I don't see any, or at least I don't remember seeing any newspaper clippings or anything tangible, which again, those could have been misreported. Well, they're just reporting on what the information was given to them. I didn't see any of that, or I don't remember seeing any of that in Resurrection, so we could chalk that up to he's just exaggerating. And obviously, it's an internet show, and you can put websites on the internet. So once you get to Resurrection, it's a lot easier to maintain the cover-up and fake stuff, because you just put fake newspaper clippings. You can Photoshop newspaper clippings and put them on the internet, and if people are accessing the internet version of the Photoshopped archive and not actually going to the town library and looking at the actual photocopies or physical actual copies of the print newspaper that was printed back in whenever it was reported, they're not going to know that there's something wrong with the headlines. And just like there's still people out there today that really believe, still to this day, that Texas Chainsaw Massacre was based on a real true story because somebody made that claim, and it's been perpetuated over the years, and we all know, we've all encountered fake news and misinformation, etc. It's easy to believe that the people in this world have also encountered that. And so, because there are cover-ups, there's probably traces of evidence out there that, the police have left, or whoever's doing the cover-up, the Photoshop newspaper clippings, fake websites, blogs, podcasts, etc., that are telling one story, and you're going to have the conspiracy theorists that are like, oh no, that's not the real story, here's the real story. And because there's so many copycats and the cult and the cover-ups and Laurie faking her death and all this other stuff, and there's so many different rumors and misinformation floating around in the universe within the Halloween films, it all works. And from the perspective of the people living in Haddonfield in the movies, excuse me, they don't see a difference. They just accept the official story because that's what they're told. That's what they believe. And then you have nut jobs like the Paul Rudd character that wasn't really Tommy Doyle, but he was faking being Tommy Doyle, who are obsessed, who are like going, who are following the sensationalist version. And then you've got the radio DJ from also that same movie who's, perpetuating the myth version of the story, because that's what he doesn't know. He doesn't read the newspapers. He's just going on the, what people have said. And so the myth of Michael Myers is bigger. It's like Jack the Ripper. The myth of Jack the Ripper is bigger than the reality, right? The idea of Jack the Ripper is bigger than what he really did. And there's not a lot of people out there that know the true story of Jack the Ripper. They just know the myth. And so even in our world, in the real world, that's a thing. Same with Ed Gein, who, again, I mentioned Texas Chainsaw. Well, there's a very loose but not direct connection that some people say it's based on Ed Gein. It really isn't. It was inspired by the story of Ed Gein, but not really. just sort of, oh, here's a guy that did this thing. Okay, I'm going to make up my own story about a guy that does the same thing, but does it differently. Not at all directly connected to Ed Gein. It's going to be the same thing. All of these people that, are getting credit for Michael Myers or spreading the myth of Michael Myers that are, again, just copycats. Probably just crazy people. Now, as an audience, we don't see any confirmation that Michael got up after Loomis shot him and is walking around Haddonfield in 81. We think we see that because we see him fall and then he disappears. Well, he disappears because he fell and the police immediately arrested him. And then Loomis goes downstairs and the police are like, listen, we've got to contain this. Because the chief of police, it was his daughter was among the victims. Well, the police department has already started covering things up because they don't want the chief to be like, they haven't told the chief that his daughter was killed yet. So they're like, listen, we got the guy. Now we have to, we have to cover this up. We got to put a lid on it before shit gets out of hand. And then the cult, because they're in on it, they're like, okay, listen, they've got our boy in custody. We can't get him out. So we're just going to send one of our copycats to the hospital to stalk Laurie because we have to continue the story. Because it's the only way that people will believe the myth of Michael Myers is we have to have somebody that looks like Michael Myers doing what we think Michael Myers does. And this will explain why Michael Myers in 78 and in the A24 films has a very distinct type of killing than the copycats do. Because Michael Myers doesn't get that creative with his kills. He likes to use a knife. Pretty much exclusively. Only straying from the knife when it's necessary or it's opportunistic. He doesn't have the knife on hand, but hey, he sees something else he can use. But he likes to strangle people and he likes to use the knife. The copycats are the ones who are like, well, we have to, in order to sensationalize Michael Myers, we have to get creative with our kills. And again, because of the cover-up, you have the conspiracy theorists that actually know the truth, but nobody believes them because they're conspiracy theorists. And they don't know the whole truth. They just know that, somebody's out there killing people in the name of Michael Myers, but the police are covering it up. And so, because of that, you have some people that do attribute all of the copycat kills to Michael, and others that don't. And because the police have covered it up so well, there's other people that don't believe those killings are related, that there was a copycat serial killers at all. They're like, no, that was an accident, or that was a car wreck, or a gas leak, or whatever. They believe the official story because they're just like, you know what, I'm just going to trust the government because that's easier for me, for them to digest. They're like, nah, we're just going to trust the government because we don't want to question things. Because most people don't question things. Most people do just trust the government. And a lot of people don't like conspiracy theories, even if they happen to actually be true. Myself included. I'm not generally a fan of conspiracy theories, but I'm also not going to just trust the government. I was a journalist for a lot of years, so I do know that you can't always trust the information the government's giving you. But I also know that sometimes you do have to, in the best interest of the public, you have to say, listen, here's what we know happened. But if people know that's what happened, they're going to panic and we're going to have riot on our hands. So the police are saying this, so we're just going to tell people this is what the police are saying. And even though we know the truth, we're not going to put it out there. We're not covering it up. We're just going to tell people this is what the police said and let you just, go with it. And then we're going to, drink our vodka and our scotch, and then when, maybe we'll write in our memoirs the truth when we, that'll get published after we die, and there's no consequences for us, and then people will either believe the book or not. A lot of journalists do that because if you go against the official story, if it's not in the best interest of the public, because the goal of journalism is to report not the truth, but what's in the best interest of the public. You're informing the public. And if the official story is going to cause a riot or get people killed, maybe you shouldn't tell people the official story. Maybe you should be like, listen, yeah, what the police are saying, this is what the police are saying, and, well, it's up to you to decide if you believe them or not, question mark. So, my official theory is, excluding Halloween 3 Season of the Witch and the 2 Rob Zombie films, everything else in the Halloween franchise is one continuous, unbroken timeline. And it isn't a choose your own adventure, it's more of a how much of the conspiracy do you believe in, which version of the truth are you going to accept. Stay cool.